here in the corner, and I'm going to give you a little bit of my opinions on the status of our elections in this country, and especially here in New York State. If I start off this lecture with saying our elections are in danger, I suspect the first thing that's going to happen is that's going to get filtered through the echo chamber of words that is now established in social media and in the minds of the public at large. And what comes out of the processing, which is very much automatic, of that statement is the statement, oh, big lie. Because by the vast majority of conversation that's going on about elections is all tied up with statements made by a certain con man that's currently in charge of this country. I want you to not think about the con man. Please breathe. Just breathe. Tune out the echo chamber. Focus on seeking the truth. By relaxing, not reacting, we open ourselves to an idea that may be contrary to what the echo chamber says, which may be contrary to what your instincts are trying to tell you. But we have to do this. We have to reach the truth. It's just too important. So what this talk will be about is how does electronic voting work? How can voting be rigged? There's that push button word, but got to say it. What can we do to protect our elections? We're not going to talk about so many other very important issues. That doesn't mean they're not important. They're very important, but we can't talk about everything. So I'm not going to talk about voter suppression. I'm not going to talk about gerrymandering, and I'm certainly not going to say any more about the big lie. We're going to get into the weeds a little bit. So let's start with a civics lesson. How does electronic voting work? Well, here it is in a nutshell. You go to the polls, you mark a ballot, you fill in the little ovals, and then following the instructions of the poll workers, you feed your ballot through a voting machine. And then that voting machine records the numbers, and at the end of the day, you have what's called a poll tape, and the poll tape has all of the votes that were cast in your precinct on that machine. The poll tape becomes public information. And so that becomes the vote. The ballots are now stuck in the voting machine. They get scanned and then they go into the bottom of that voting machine. And that voting machine is sealed, but at the end of the day, what they do is they then break that seal, and the poll workers take out all the ballots, and they put them on the table, and then they load them into boxes or sometimes bags, and then they apply a seal to the bags. This then goes to the custodian of the vote, which is often a officer of the police force, and they take that by car to a place called the vault, which is at the Board of Elections, and it's a room that has two locks on it, so it can only be opened by the two people who are the commissioners of the Board of Elections. So that's in a nutshell how you vote on the electronic voting machines, and then how those votes end up going to be stored. Okay, now let's go and see what happens after that. Okay, before I do that, the proper storage of ballots is in a bag or a box that has a seal, and it's a tamper-evident seal, and it has a unique number on it. So, and that is experts at the Board of Election can look at that and they can tell you, no, that's a true seal, and that can't be reproduced anywhere. It's also important that there is a logbook, and so when the seal is applied, you're supposed to fill it out in a logbook and sign it with your name. When you cut the seal, you are also supposed to log that in and sign it, and anybody who's witnessed the cutting of the seal can also sign it. And so Ballot stuffing without detection is not possible if you follow the rules. Anybody can check the bag, make sure there's no holes in it. Anybody can check the seals, see they're not broken. And so paper can't go in or get out if you follow the rules. Okay, then what happens is those ballots will stay in the ballot vault until one of three things happens. If by some chance there's a court order for a recount, they will be taken out, they will be unsealed, and they will go through the recount process, which may be manual or it may be feeding them back through the voting machines, or usually a different vote counter. The other place that they get used is at the 3% post-election audit, and that happens up to 15 days after the election. And again, they will pull them out, unseal them, and then they'll go through the counting process. And the only other way that they're opened is when they're destroyed, and that's can happen at the earliest 2 years after the election, and that's called expiration. So now that we know how you cast a vote, what's happening with the ballots, and if everything's done correctly, we kind of get a sense that it's fairly secure. Now let's talk about the audit. The audit checks the veracity of the voting machines. So, and it does that by skipping over the voting machine and comparing the marked ballot with the poll tape. So in the audit, you're going to manually, the team undertaking the audit, which will be the commissioners of the Board of Elections, will be looking at the votes on individual ballots and adding them up and then comparing that at the end of the day with the poll tape. And it does take all day to do this. And then they must agree. If they don't agree, then you're supposed to do something called escalate the vote. So here's New York post-election manual audit. They're unsealed, ballots are counted, counts are compared to the poll tape, and then if all is well, the election is certified with this sheet that is sent up to the State Board of Elections. Now, given all this nice security, have elections been rigged? That's interesting. If we go back to 2016, and you look at the pre-election polls, Hillary Clinton was ahead of Trump consistently. It was variable, but it was consistent right up to election day. And then on election day, Trump wins. So by all accounts, something really weird happened. I think Hillary was left standing in this hotel ballroom with a glass ceiling, and she was supposed to symbolically break the glass ceiling and be the first woman elected president. Trump was alone with his family in Trump Tower and got the news that he won. So nobody, not even the candidates, expected this to happen. So here's the surprising result. And what you had was, of the battleground states, and there were, I think, 7, 5 of the battleground states went to Trump, and then 2 of the non-battleground states, states that were expected to go to the Democrats, went to Trump, Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. 2 of the battleground states, Nevada and New Hampshire, went to Clinton. So sure, this can happen, but it seems like the Trump benefited from the random deviations, if that's indeed what they were. The other hypothesis is they were not random. Another suggestion, data that suggests that something non-random was happening, is that there were 27 House races listed as toss-ups. So they're listed in the Cook Political Report. They were toss-up. That means that they're regarded as 50-50, Trump or Clinton. And sorry, this is Trump or Biden. This is in 2020. And so they were listed as toss-up, and all 27 of them went to Trump. If they really were 50-50, if we believe the assessment of the pollsters that they really were 50-50, then the odds by random chance that Trump would have won 27 out of 27 is the same as the odds of flipping a coin 27 times and always getting heads. I calculated that number. It's 0.00000000745. A very, very tiny number, rounds off to zero. By anybody's confidence cutoffs, this is a zero probability occurrence. So either it's not random chance, or the assessments were wrong, or something nefarious was happening. If we look at Arizona, Trump won Arizona, swept, this is in 2024, so I've moved forward another 4 years. Trump wins Arizona, sweeping all 7 battleground states. So it happens again. And if you then go and you look at Arizona, let's look at these graphs. There's variability by county. This is like county on the x-axis of the vote, naturally. But that variability is the same in 2024, which is down here at the bottom, as it is in 2020. The other thing we see is that the Republican candidates are tightly correlated. Trump for president, McSally was running for senator. And the Democratic candidates are also very tightly correlated. Kelly was running for senator and Biden for president. But now in 2024, they're also tightly correlated, but something weird happens. The presidential candidates are shifted up and down relative to the Senate candidates. So now everybody likes Trump more than Kari Lake, and everybody likes Harris less than Ruben Gallego. So they changed the candidates. Maybe Gallego was more popular than Kelly. Maybe Lake was less popular than McSally. But it just is suggestive of something else going on, especially the fact that it's across the board. All counties shifted up by the same amount for Trump, shifted down by the same amount for Harris. Suspicious? Let's put it this way. One possible hypothesis for this happening is that this was programmed in. Somehow this is in the algorithm. Here's the calculation of 7-state sweep by random chance, 0.0078, and as the number I told you before, the 27-state sweep, less than 1 in a billion chance. Okay, this should raise suspicion. This is very highly unlikely to happen by chance. Another thing, which is the data that came to my attention going as far back as 2004, was the difference between the election and the exit polls. Historically, exit polls are an excellent indicator of how the vote's going to turn out. Exit polls, of course, is when you're asking people who they already voted for after they just voted. And they rarely lie, and it's not an issue of changing their minds because they've already voted. So this is the 2020 Senate election exit polls. And rather than go through the numbers like this, I'd like to process the numbers for you and to understand what exit poll data is saying, because I think it's that important. So I have to give you a little explanation as to what polls are, what exit polls are, and a little bit of statistics. So exit polls are polls of those who just voted, post-election polling. A poll, in general, is a random sample of some kind of underlying truth. So in this case, the underlying truth is these people voted for blue, these people voted for red. Looks to me like blue is 75%, red is 25%. And a random sampling of that underlying truth would be to make phone calls, but in this analogy, it's to throw random darts. A very bad dart player throws darts at this board, and you hit the board with 100 darts, and then you count the ones that landed in blue, and you count the ones that landed in red, and within plus or minus error, it's going to be 75% of the darts landed in blue, 25% of the darts landed in red. You didn't have to count everybody. You just had to throw a significant number of darts. Usually it's on the order of 1,000. And if you do that, and it's just a two-color dartboard, you get a very good estimate. I think it's intuitive that if you sampled this dartboard 1,000 times, you'd get pretty close to the right answer. Historically, exit polls are accurate to within 1%. So we can turn that into a bell curve statistics by doing a computational experiment where we just use virtual darts and a virtual dartboard and say, okay, depending on how many darts you use, how off am I going to be? And so I did that and I ran a simulation, and the results look like this. So the after so the results, I did 100,000 of these, and I'm just showing you some of them. And if I added up the 100,000 and then I drew a histogram, I get this bell curve. So now if I compare that to some kind of sample, it should fall within that bell curve in the following way. About, let's say, 2/3 of the samples should fall within one margin of error, MOE, of 0. 0 is when the two numbers, the official number and the random chance number, are identical. 95% should fall within 2 margins for error. And the data should be symmetrical around 0, half positive, half negative. That's what we're looking for when the exit poll is reliable and it matches the actual vote. What did we actually see? Well, so now here's the presidential election in 2016 by state. Each dot is a state. And then if it's, and then I looked at the exit poll. Let's see, I looked at the official count minus the exit poll. So it's the tally is the official count. And then the exit poll is what was gotten by Edison Research when they did random calling. And they do a correction for like demographic differences in order to correct away known systematic differences. But they still saw a systematic difference between the number in the election and the poll directly from the people who were called. And it's shifted to the right. It's not symmetrical around 0. And then if you, it's not 50% with, it's not 2/3 within one standard deviation or one margin of error. Now let's look at some of those states. Most of the states are not switched by this shift between the exit poll and the election. If I say the exit poll is the true number and then the election may be rigged, then I have to say that the ones that the shift is due to the rigging. And then, so in 2016, 19 of the states were shifted to the right, 7 were shifted to the left, 50% within one margin of error. 14 states, the ones in blue, Democrats won, and they were also ahead in the exit poll. 8 states in red that the Republicans won, and they were also ahead in the exit poll. So the exit poll and the official tally agreed, at least in terms of who won the election. But in green here are the states where the Democrats won in the exit poll and the Republicans won in the election. So these are cases where the election was stolen. The election did not turn out the way the exit polls. If we regard the exit polls as the truth, then the election was stolen. It changed who got elected. 4 states changed from, let's say, blue to red. No states changed from red to blue. There's none of these pink states there. This is documented. The data I'm looking at is from TDMS research, Theodore de Macedo Suarez. It's documented in Jonathan Simon's book, Code Red, and another version of the 2004 elections is well documented in a book called Was the 2004 Presidential Election Stolen? By Stephen Freeman, who is a statistician. So that happened. And I was not too surprised, having read Stephen Freeman's book, that in 2016 there was a red shift just like there was in 2004. And so if we continue looking, TDMS research has exit poll data for several other elections. 2016 Senate elections also shifted to the right. Two of the states, and I'm going to do the air quotes, stolen. Two of the states unexpectedly falling to the other party. 2020 presidential election shifted to the right. Two states unexpectedly switching from blue to red. 2022 Senate elections maybe shifted to the right. Three states apparently shifted to the red from blue to red. As time goes on, it's getting harder and harder to find exit poll data. The company that does it is not forthcoming, and they're not publishing this data as they used to on election night. And so it's hard to get this data, and so we don't have any 2024 exit poll data. But if I summarize the exit poll data, we are expecting to see a symmetrical distribution of the deviations between the exit poll and the official tally. We see a shift, so-called red shift, in all of the elections that I've shown you here. Suspicious? Maybe. Is there a way to protect us from, what can protect us from elections being stolen electronically? And so this brings up the post-election audits, because the intention of those audits is to protect exactly, I think the lawmakers that wrote election law knew that this kind of thing could happen. And people who studied voting machines have known for a long time that hacking is possible. And so, but our safety here is that we have audits, and they can protect our elections from this kind of hacking. So let's ask, can the audits protect us? So an audit, as I mentioned before, compares the marked ballots with the official numbers that came from the scanner, the voting machine. So the way that the vote can be tampered with, one of the ways, is by ballot stuffing. Ballot stuffing means that somebody who has access to the ballot bags and access to unmarked ballots goes in and stuffs more ballots in there. Now, if they want the counts to add up, they might remove ballots that they don't want and put in ballots that they do, changing the vote. And it wouldn't be detected by just counting the number of ballots. Now, since the ballots are already counted, this would not do anything unless the reason for ballot stuffing was that there was also electronic tampering. So if the voting machine ignores the ballots and gives you its own number, or it takes the ballots and then it modifies it by a certain percentage to change the votes for a certain candidate, now the poll tape is not going to match the ballots. But the bad actors can correct that if they have access to the ballot bags. So by ballot stuffing, they can now reconcile what the machine said to what the ballots say, and then you would not have, you would not be able to detect the manipulation of the vote. After the poll tape, the results go public, so it is not possible to steal the elections after it's now in the public domain. Okay, so an audit should now, it comes before ballot stuffing and it comes after electronic tampering. So theoretically, if we have a sealed ballot bags and we're comparing that to the poll tape, ballot stuffing, electronic tampering will not work, and we will be able to catch them. Because if they're claiming that the numbers are correct and they're not when you compare it to the ballot, then we have something going on here. Then we've caught somebody. So I've been, looking at the weirdness and wondering, it took me years, but wondering what I could do about it. And I realized that the Board of Elections was within a stone's throw of my office at RPI. And so I took a little walk downhill to the Board of Elections and I asked them, can I see the audit sheets, please? And they showed me the audit sheets for 2016. And here's an example of one of the audit sheets. When they're doing the audit, the election workers are marking down numbers as they're being called off by the election commissioner. And then they add them up at the end. And it looked weird to me. If you add up these numbers for Hillary Clinton, for example, they add up to 220. But then somebody went ahead and wrote in 253, and the machine reading was 253. And so I saw this right away, and I asked the workers, can you explain something to me? Why are there two numbers in this box? And why is this one in red? In this copy, it's hard to tell. And they said, this is the real number, and it matches the one in red. And I said, did you have the numbers written in red written there first? And they said, yeah, we always do that. Write the machine number first. And then after all the tallying, then you write the other number. So I didn't expect to get a straight answer. And I left with a squinty-eyed hypothesis that maybe they just ignored this number and then they wrote the number that would save them extra work. So I tried to bring this to the attention of lawmakers and didn't get very far. I also found some audit sheets where they simply did not fill in the number. So this was clearly not correct. The number that they left hanging there doesn't match, and they didn't go ahead and make up a number and put it in there. So incomplete. So and if you do see a discrepancy, you're supposed to report it. This is the front page of the audit sheets, and you're supposed to say if there's unexplained discrepancies, you check this box and you escalate the audit. You do another audit at the level of 5% instead of 3%. And if this is a 5% audit, you scale it up to 12%. And if it's a 12% audit, you scale it up to a full recount. And if you do full recount, it replaces the current even certified vote. So in New York, we have binding audits. And so that means that if the audit produces a different outcome, different winners of the election, that becomes the new outcome. Other states don't have that possibility. So they did not report it. They checked off that there was no problem and sent that off to the Board of Elections. That's what they checked. So they didn't report it, so I reported it. Then what happened? So I went off, I filed a complaint to the State Board of Elections. I sent them the pictures that I saw, and I said, this is obviously wrong. State Board of Elections acknowledged that they got my report, but then something strange happened. They changed the method. And the very next year, they changed the method they used for the audit. Now, I'm getting a little creative here in imagining the dialogue that must have taken place for this to happen. But what you have to do when you are looking for bad actors is try to think, and how did this happen? How could have been just purely coincidence, but it's also possible that they changed the method in order to make it harder to find the discrepancies. So I think I reported, hey, the audits are off. State Board of Elections said, okay, thank you, we got this. Then they go to the New York State Legislature and they say, somebody noticed the audits were off. We need to fix this. And the New York State Legislature says, okay, we got this. And then they say, okay, now you can use automated audits, saying this back to the Board of Elections. And then the Board of Elections says, okay. And they tell Rensselaer County, use the automated audits. And then Rensselaer County says, okay, we got this. Here's your new automatic, and this is telling the public observers, here's your new automatic auditing machine. And the public observer, which is me, showing up for the next audit, says, Now I can't even tell if it's off. So that's what happened. Specifically, here I am. Here's the video, and I'm just going to narrate over myself. Here I am watching one of the commissioners choose the machines that are going to be audited.
29.
Number 29 from the bingo ball roller. These are the two commissioners right in front of us here.
VFW districts 1 and 8.
I didn't see it come out.
Actually, I didn't either.
I didn't see that come out.
Does it come out? There's a little thing there. Yeah.
That's my voice and Hugh Johnson, who was with me there when we were attending the audits. And we're behind a glass window.
Post and kill.
So they've called off the precinct that they're going to audit.
So now we have to go and get everything, so we're gonna be a little bit.
Can we follow you?
Start counting.
Can we follow you?
No.
They did not let us go into the vault. So here they are coming back from the vault.
Oh, these are the ballots. These are the ballots
And look at this bag. It's open.
in blue duffel bags. Can I go in?
Can we go in?
Mr. Schofield. Mr. Schofield. Hello.
Hello?
Can I come in?
Can we come in yet?
They ignored us.
Observers. Can we observe?
Finally, they let us in. And so we go over to the table where they've now already opened the ballot bag, although we later confirmed that the ballot bags were already open.
Oh, you already got them.
No, it doesn't matter what way they go. No, yeah.
And then
Where's the bins, if there was any
You
cited,
still have the
are
others.
they in the,
East Greenbush 1, DFW.
No, all 14.
Is that the precinct? Now, is this going to be done manually?
Goes through our machine.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to count manually.
Here's the machine room. It's covered, I think. There's the machine room where the clear
Look on the
ballot
wall.
vote counter
Yeah.
is connected. And is that connected to the internet?
No.
Not connected to the internet.
And this just so happens, this precinct has 2 election districts in it, so we have to do both elections.
So I saw the selection of the bingo ball.
Correct.
I saw the sheet that related that to a precinct.
Correct.
And now I've seen the precinct
Correct.
that you're actually auditing. So
Yep.
I think I've seen the trail.
Yes.
I was being polite.
This is called a clear ballot scanner, and it runs a face page through, which looks like that.
They run a page through to tell it what ballots are coming.
Yeah, you do. You have to have it on, but when you run the update.
Gotcha, okay. Thank you.
And there was this guy sitting there. So I asked him, what's he doing?
Are you the expert in the clear counting ballot?
Oh, yeah, I'm just a tech for the
Okay.
scanner.
Are you employed by the scanner manufacturer?
No, not the
Right.
manufacturer.
Oh.
I'm employed by Clear Ballot.
Oh, okay. I see they can be oriented up or down. Doesn't matter, right?
Double-sided scan, yeah, so it doesn't matter.
There it is. They're counting the
You
votes.
can verify that with the switch. It's only connected to the server. The laptop has its Wi-Fi and Bluetooth drivers turned off, so there's no way that.
But we don't have any way of verifying that.
Well, you could contact the state. They did the acceptance test on it, so they know that what the configuration is and all that. And it would take some serious know-how to get in there to unharden the system and to turn the Wi-Fi. and Bluetooth
I'm
back
saying
on.
today, an observer cannot verify that that machine is not connected to the internet,
You can
right?
when you contact the State Board of Elections.
But not here at the audit, where observers are allowed.
Yep.
So there's no way for me to know.
Then you have to take our word for it.
That's true. That's true. There's maybe a flaw in the system there. I think the rest is gonna be more of the same, so I'm gonna say bye. And thank you so much.
So we left, and we did not stay for the whole audit, showing that it was, just a theater of an audit. But we analyzed the video afterwards and confirmed that I think you can see here. There's the bag within the bag here is open. The bag itself is open. There's no seals on this bag, so we didn't miss them cutting the seals. They didn't seal it, or they cut the seals before they pulled them out of the vault. Interesting. So we wrote a letter to the editor, Hugh and I, calling the audits a sham. because, well, it doesn't give you any assurance that the vote was counted correctly. They pulled the ballots. Yeah, they looked. They instead of counting it, now they scan the ballots. We can't observe the scanning. This produces now scanner numbers. We can't see those numbers. We can't tell if they're the same as the poll tape. So basically, the new method for auditing automatically provides no assurances for public observers. Since then, I've been involved in a lawsuit against the State Board of Elections, and one of the complaints here is that automated audits are in conflict with audit law, which says that the public has the right to observe the audit. And so it is a case of the law in conflict with itself. There's a law that allows you to use these automated audit devices, but it conflicts with the law that says that the public has the ability to observe and the right to observe the audit. The public can't both have the right to observe the audit and also have that right taken away by the automated tool. So that's going to the Supreme Court. Here's what the seals would have looked like. We didn't see them. So with all the problems with electronic voting, most of the countries in Europe now don't use electronic voting anymore. They do hand-marked paper ballots, hand-counted. So they don't have any of these problems here. And I think we should look to Europe as the leader in honest elections now. Can we, the audits aren't protecting us, can we protect the audits? I think we can. I think the first thing to do is to be there and to attend the audits and witness what's going on. Know the law, learn election law, contact a candidate on the ballot, ask to represent them at the audit, and then with that, only the candidates will be informed as to where the audit takes place, so that you can find out from them and you can show up at the Board of Elections and attend the audit and just be witness to what they're doing. Show up, sign in. If they are doing a manual audit, which they have to do in some instances, try to follow the vote to the best of your ability, and then look for problems, violations, discrepancies, and report them. Here's my tally sheet. This was for when they were auditing Rensselaer County Precinct Hoosick 3, and here's all my tallies. I then compared that to the poll tapes, and I found out that in many of the contests, there were extra votes for across the board for one of the parties. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 elections, all of which the Republican got about 10% more votes than they should have, according to the manual count, according to the audit. This was then, of course, not reported by the Board of Elections, did not go up to the State Board of Elections. If you see something, complain. That's the technical term for it. You send a complaint to the State Board of Elections and you write it up, and their mission statement is to prevent election law violations, and so they have to read what you wrote and they have to respond to it. And so I did that and they responded to it. Unfortunately, they dismissed all my allegations, so it led to an Article 78 proceeding, which is ongoing against the State Board of Elections because they were ignoring all the irregularities and documented violations in the Rensselaer County Board of Elections. And so that happens at the level of the state Supreme Court. So you can litigate these things. You can also legislate. There are requirements for audits in federal law. Federal law on elections is the HAVA, the Help America Vote Act of 2002. And one of the provisions is there must be a manual audit capacity. So if they're doing an electronic audit, doesn't that mean it's no longer a manual audit? In that case, this has to go back to lawmakers and they have to correct the law. There's other election integrity bills that are going on in New York. One is called Viva NY, Assembly Bill A6287, and it says, among other things, that the ballot, or that the paper trail here has to be a human readable paper ballot. A paper ballot where all the candidates, ballot proposals, and selections could be tabulated, are readable without assistance other than eyeglasses or other standard personal vision enhancing devices. The reason for this new law is that the new voting machines don't record a human readable paper trail, they record a barcode. So legislation is there, it's not been passed yet, but to protect us against making the paper trail unreadable by humans. There's also, at the federal level, some reform going on, and never mind that it was spearheaded by a Republican, but it's the Federal Election Audit Act. I think this should be a nonpartisan issue. Republicans and Democrats should be out there trying to make elections fair. In this bill, which has not yet been passed, it died in a previous Congress, no individual who participates in conducting the audit is an employee or contractor of an office of the state or local government which is responsible for the administration of the elections for federal office or anything else. So this is try to, not have the fox guard the chicken coop, but have some independent bodies doing the auditing. And I think that would fix a lot of the problems. I think that a lot of the problems, and by problems I mean corruption within the state board, within the county boards of election, is because they're the foxes guarding the chicken coop. They're being asked to certify their own work. And so why would they, not certify it? They're going to say, yeah, of course, we did a perfect job every time. Okay, so this is not passed, needs a lot of help. You can also, this is not something that's taught in schools so much. In order to learn more about it, you have to read. Election rigging, stealing elections is like a grand old tradition in the United States. And there's many books about it. There's many articles about it. And it is an obligation, I think, for anybody who values our democracy to learn about how it can be rigged and how to prevent it. So I urge you to do so. And then finally, I would like to urge you to join groups such as Smart Elections, Citizens for Voting Integrity, Indivisible, all of these are in New York, Scrutineers out of California, Fair Fight out of Georgia, and across the nation, the League of Women Voters, who are all groups that are fighting for democracy in this country. Thanks for listening, and join us in this fight. All right.